Hi fellow crafters, welcome to another episode of Angela Shows You. So today I just want to say up front that this episode is probably going to be a little bit on the longer side. We're going to walk through making a beautiful tote bag out of strips from a jellyroll which is like about 40 to 42 inch long piece of fabric by usually about 2¼ to 2½ inches wide, and then you also just need some thicker pieces for the top pieces. So we're going to walk through just about the entire bag of this. This bag does take a little while to make from start to finish, so you're going to want to either just plan on a while or maybe a couple of sittings, depending on what your schedule looks like. But this is the bag. They are, so beautiful, and it's a great way to get a variety of fabrics in one of your favorite fabric collections, and, have a great and functional bag when you are done. Now, the one thing with this bag that you just want to keep in mind is we can't make a pocket inside of this bag, and you'll see why as I start demonstrating to you how this bag is assembled. But I've got down on a pattern, and I'm going to go over to the pattern with you in a second. You don't necessarily need a pattern per se, but I have this kind of mapped out just on a piece of like craft paper, because I find it helpful. I like making these bags, and I find it helpful to kind of plot out what pieces I want and like kind of which order I'm going to want them in. So I've got everything all plotted out on a piece of craft paper, and I lay everything out and kind of figure out how do I want to set my bag up, and then go from there. So you do need you need a bunch of strips from a jelly roll, and then I also use you need a wide piece. So this is from a fat quarter that I use this from. This strip here, this is from a jelly roll, and it's actually it's not cut in half lengthwise, but it is cut in half. Instead of the 40, I cut in half, but this isn't the full 2½ as you can see from here. It's overlapped just for ease of sewing. And then we've got some nice boxed corners on this bag. So this ends up being a pretty good size bag, as you can see. And then the straps we do on the outside, and then we also need a piece to make. I didn't quite, you can see I kind of went off course here, but you need a piece for to close up the inner and the outer pieces. So that's a finished bag. So this is what the bag looks like. This is the pattern that I've got plotted out. So you can see I've got on here, I have my paper, and you've got your jelly roll strip that is the 40 inches. And then out of that 2½ you need 1½ by 20 inches, and then that large top piece you need 5 inches, 4½ to 5 inches by 20½. So you use 8 full pieces of jelly roll, and then we also are going to have 4 pieces that are cut into smaller pieces. This is where the corner gets boxed out on both sides of the bag. Doing it that way does make it just a little bit easier when you're sewing it. So what you do is I take my pieces that I want. So like these pieces here are going to be these that go on either side. So these are going to be, these are these pieces that go here. Okay. So what I like to do is I just kind of plot out what my centerpiece is going to be, and then I use the same piece on either side, the same piece, and you do have kind of one like rogue piece there. So like this one will be the middle, and then I'm going to do blue with red flowers on either side. Then I'm going to do this one with the polka dots. So that's why I like to have this all laid out. I plot out what pieces I want and where. I've got the two strips that are going to go at these tops. Okay. And then I've got a fat quarter piece, and that's going to go at the top up here. And then I've got other pieces, you know, my other pieces. This one will go here, and then I've got another piece here. Now, if you noticed on my paper, I've got numbers written down. These numbers are the order in which you are going to sew your pieces when you get, after you've got everything cut and plotted out. These are the numbers in which we're going to sew our pieces. So we start, of course, with piece number 1. That's going to be that very center piece of your bag. Okay, so we've got number 1. Now I actually did, I didn't alternate quite with all the pieces. I did 1 and 2, I did different, and then, so it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I went that way. But then there have been other bags where I've done 1, 2, and 3 will be the same, 4 and 5 the same, 6 and 7 the same, and then 8 ends up being a different piece. So really, it kind of depends on your fabric, what you've got. If you have 2 of something, but maybe you only have enough of 1 of something else, that can, wherever you decide to place it. That's why I do find it helpful to have this. This is just, like I said, craft paper, tissue paper that I plotted out so that I can get everything laid out and see what do I think of how the colors might flow together. And then the other thing that you need is this entire fabric piece. You also need a piece for the lining, for the inside of the bag, that's this big. And it's all one piece. And then you also need either fusible fleece or some, a batting that you like working with. And then the only other thing that you need is 2 pieces of, you need 2 more things. You need 2 pieces for handles for the bag, and you need 1 piece for, you need 1 piece to go around here. So that one is going to be about 42 inches, because we've got each side is about 20.5. So you want about 42 around for this, almost like a bias piece, if you will. And then you need 2 pieces for your straps as well, and you want those to be 34 inches long by 2.5 inches wide. So a piece of your jelly roll fabric, but you're going to cut it down from the 42 to 34. If you want your handles to be a little bit longer, go ahead and cut them maybe 36. Just the whole 42 is a little bit too long. Okay, so I've got a bag ready to go. Okay, so I'm gonna do, this bag is going to be the colors that I laid out, and I chose a dark green is going to be the inside of my bag. And what I did was I sewed on already. I fused this on, I ironed it on, and then I did just go ahead and I sewed just the top here, and I sewed so each of the 2 ends. So when the bag is done, it goes this way. So that's why you need like a bias piece for the top, so that you will hide this opening. Okay, so I already started going ahead and plotting out, and I took my fusible fleece and I basically copied from my template that I have plotted out, and I drew it all right onto the fusible fleece, and I numbered everything. So this is piece number 1 right here, and I laid piece number 1 down, and then I put 2 on top of it, and so we're going to demonstrate that in a moment. So when I'm going to sew along this side, and then we'll flip this over, and then we're going to take our next piece number 3, and we're going to lay it on piece number 1 again. We're going to sew it on this side, and we'll flip it open. So you can see that I allowed a little bit of extra space on either end of my jelly roll strip. That's where that thin piece is going to go. Like this. So those edges will be covered by these pieces on either end. But so we do these first, and then we do these, and then we do these, and they're numbered as such. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then those small pieces, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we've got 13 and 14, and then 15 and 16. And then this will be cut out, and when we get there, we'll cut those out, and then those will be where we box our corners. Okay, so we're going to go to the machine. And I would also like to point out that for this project, you are going to definitely want to make sure that your thread matches whatever color you choose for the inside, the lining of the bag, because you are going to see, that those threads are going to be noticeable. So you do want them to match. You wouldn't want to use, you know, white if you on like this dark green or the purple I used purple thread. So I wouldn't have wanted to use white in here. I probably really wouldn't have wanted to use black either. So I used a dark purple. So once you have your jelly roll strips all kind of plotted out the way, you know, you like I said, you know, kind of how any patterns flow together, you know, depending on what you're using. You know, I do like to plot it out first. So I do like to, you know, I just use ruler. I've got this 18-inch Cricut ruler, and I just kind of start and I draw lines and make sure that I have everything plotted out the best. Now, you can probably see on here that like those corner pieces these look wide. That's okay. I cut this just a little bit wider than I'm actually going to need, and you know, we'll get all that trimmed up and everything at the end. So I placed number one, so the right side goes up, and then I took, so it's right sides together. I took piece number two, and I put it right side down on piece number one. Piece number one is going to be right in the center of the bag. So piece number two, so we're going to sew it on this side. So we're going to just feed it right in the machine on this side. Whoops. And we're just going to start at the top. Okay, so we've got our piece in here, and we're gonna go down. Now I use, on my machine, I've got kind of, you know, I've got the piece from the foot. I kind of use that as my guide against the edge of the fabric. So this piece here, I'm going to use that as my guide along the edge of the fabric. Okay, so now we did that. I pinned it down, of course, so now we're going to open that piece up. Okay, now we don't want to iron this, of course. We don't want to iron these down. So this is where, you know, pins are going to come in very, very handy, because we want to keep everything very flat, but we don't want to pin it because we don't want the fleece piece to do any shrinkage. So we don't want to iron anything. So I'm going to just pull this one, because it's sewn down on the one side, but it's still open on this side. So I want to have it pulled kind of taut, and then I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to pin that down. Few pins all the way down. Okay? Alright, and then I've got my piece number 1, this one here, and I've got it pinned a little bit close to the edge, so I'm actually going to just move the pins, because now we're going to take the piece that's going to be piece number 3, and I've got a 3 written on here. So I'm going to do this red piece on the other side of piece number 1, so 2 and 3 will be the same. So we're going to take this piece, and I do like to I've got that raw edge, so I'm gonna just put the raw edge of this one. I'm gonna keep all those raw edges together. So I'm going to line up all the way down. I'm gonna line up those edges, and I'm gonna pin that in place. All the way down. Alright, so now I've got piece number 3 that's going to open up this way, pin down to piece number 1, and we're going to start at the top. And now remember, on this piece we sewed down the right side. On this one, or down the left side, I'm sorry. This time we're going to sew down the right side. Well, I am. You could flip it if you want. But I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to work my way down. So rather than have the bulk of the bag be in here, it's going to be now on the outside, and I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to start up here. Unpin. Now we're going to open this piece up, and we're going to give it a little bit of a tug. open it up, and we just want to pin this open. And we're going to do that all the way down. So that's open. Okay? So then you're going to take the pieces that you're going to have on 4 and 5, and you're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to use these, the blue pieces with the flowers on them. So then I would do the same thing. I'm going to right sides together. I'm going to keep that. The other raw edges are at this end, so I'm going to just do the same thing up here. I'm going to pin this in place, and we're going to sew from start to stop, and then we're going to go to piece number 4, and that'll be pinned down, and we're going to sew that, and you're just going to keep alternating until you get all 8 of these pieces sewn on. So I'm going to pause the video, but by the time you see this, it's going to be seamless, because you know, we're just going to keep repeating those steps. So I'm going to pause, I'm going to do that, and then we'll come back and we'll do the end pieces, and we'll do that, the small strip and the wide strip. Okay, so now I have gone ahead and I sewed on all the strips. They're all sewn down. Like I said, we alternated from left to right, got all 8 of our pieces sewn down. So now it's time to do the very edge pieces that are gonna, the shorter ones that are gonna go kind of like, you know, quarter of the way down, so that they stop and leave the gap where we are going to have our boxed corner, that this is going to be cut out. Now you can cut this out at any time. I leave it on here, but they can be cut out anytime. So I've left pins on the very end pieces, this piece and this end piece, because we still have, I want that to stay put. We still have these left to go. So I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to line up these raw edges here, right sides together, and we're going to do the same thing that we did for the strips. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pin these down. And then we're gonna do the same. We're just gonna go right ahead, and we're gonna sew from our starting point here, and we can stop at our one cut line, and then we will do the same for this bottom piece here. And I did, these are a little bit on the long side. They could have been trimmed a little bit. We're going to, there it is. I had my phone plugged in, but the plug kept pulling on my phone, and it was trying to take the camera on my stand and toppling it over. Okay, so then we're going to pin down this other side here. I am gonna just trim that. It's a little on the long side, like I mentioned. So we'll just trim it down a little bit. So one thing that I did that I didn't really mention too much as, you know, as we're doing these, is I shift the pins. I don't keep all the pins going down, you know. Once the piece is sewn down and secured, then I just take the pins that were off of this piece when this is sewn down, and I move them and I use them to pin down this piece. When this one's sewn down, then I take those pins, and so on and so forth. And this one's a little on the long side also, so we'll just trim that down a little bit. So we're just going to sew each of these pieces. Okay, there we go. Okay, so then we're getting there on this beautiful bag. as you can see, we are really starting to get down to our final steps. This bag does take a little time, like I said at the beginning. This bag definitely takes a while. You know, you got a lot of back and forth at the machine, you're pinning and whatnot. So now my next step is going to be, I just do want to take these pieces, give them a nice press out, get them, you know, pulled a little taut like you did for the rest of the pieces. That way our strips are nice and flat on our bag, and we do want to pin. Okay. So our bag is starting to come along. Now, this is going to be the inside of the bag. So one thing, you know, at some point, you're going to just want to go ahead and trim off. But this is why you want to use a thread that matches, because you are, you know, you can see them. So it is nice to have a thread that coordinates with the interior of your bag. You don't see the threads on the outside, of course, but you do see them inside. So I chose a dark green that matched with my fabric. Okay. Oops, I did miss one. There we go. So now I've got my threads all just trimmed up nice. So then our next step is going to be, we're going to take the two pieces that you opt on for the strip piece, and we're going to put it face down. I do like to just kind of see where does it need to go on my bag, okay? And you want it to cover, of course, all the ends on here, and I want to make sure that it's gonna cover up all the salvage pieces, okay? So I just kind of want to see where it's going to need to go, and remember, it's going to be flipped back. So I'm going to put it down a little ways from the edge here, and I'm going to pin it down. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the machine, and we are going to sew this way. And then we would, of course, do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to make sure that this piece at least is, you know, comes down to the end. This one strip was a little bit short, so I just want it doesn't quite come down. It doesn't come as tall up as you can see. This one ends here and the rest of them end a little. So I'm just going to make sure that this raw edge, you know, is lined up with this one here so that you don't have any gap that you see when that's sewn on. And of course I also want to make sure that it goes to the raw end. This raw end meets this raw end. And then we're going to pin that in place. So then we are going to sew this and we're going to sew the other side. Okay, so then we can remove those pins and we can open that flap up. I didn't put it down far enough. Fortunately, this bag is going to be for myself. I'm not going to sweat that too much. You know, I've mentioned before on this channel, I do make to sell, but since this bag, I intended this bag to be for myself. I'm not going to worry too much about this. I could probably find a marker, you know, and maybe I'll color this in a little bit or whatever so that it's not white, but I'm not going to sweat it too awfully much since I am planning on keeping this bag for myself. I just loved this fabric. I thought that this whole collection was beautiful. This was called Jubilee. I always love the florals. I just think that the flowers are always so pretty. Okay. Missed a pin. So then same thing on this end, we're gonna just open that up. Okay, so we are getting there. We have just a couple steps left on this bag. Our next line of business is going to be to take the fat quarter that we cut and either, like I said, 4.5 to 5, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to line up these raw edges. We're going to pin these in place on that one strip. We'll do the same thing on this end, and we're going to sew those. And then we'll get our last step accomplished. Okay, so we are getting there with our bag. It's, you know, coming right along. We have just a few steps left and the bag will be complete. So this bag is coming along beautifully. I had to pause the video for a second. My bobbin was starting to run out of thread, so I went ahead and I reloaded my bobbin in the green. And then the only other thing that I did off camera was I sewed our that top piece. I went ahead and I sewed that. I took all the pins out, and then I also went around and really close to the edge I did stitch all the way around. I went ahead and I stitched I stitched everything all the way up, and I also cut out our boxed corners. So the next step that you're going to want to do is you're going to take the bag and you are going to go ahead and you're going to fold it so that the outside is facing in, because now it's time to take care of our corners. So what we're going to do here is we're going to line up our corners, and I am going to just make sure that everything's even, because for some reason my one side actually looks like it is a little bit bigger than the other side. It probably isn't, but I am going to just do a couple quick measurements, and we're going to just kind of make sure that we're all even here. So we've got 3. No, it is. It's yeah, it's even. It just looks uneven. That's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to forgot one step. With our bag, we need it right side out. We do want to we want to trim off the excess. we're gonna trim that excess off of either side here. Okay. I just wanted to go ahead and square everything off. Okay, so we've got our excess trimmed off. So now what we can do is we can take it. Now we're going to put the right sides together. Oh, I forgot about the top. There we go. All right. So now what we need to do is we're going to sew the sides. We're going to sew a seam up either of the sides of the bag so that the sides are done, and then what we'll do is when that's done, we'll come back in, we'll pinch our corners in, and we'll get the corners boxed. Okay, so what I do like to just do is go ahead once more, come along the side here, trim off the excess again. It just reduces the bulk by doing that. So then we're going to take our corners of our bag. We're going to fold it in just like this. Take a couple clips, clip that in place, and then we are going to sew from one edge to the next, and we're going to do that on both sides. So you're just going to open it up just like this, and you're just going to, okay, just like that. And what, if you want to, you can take the side seams and you can fold them open a little bit. There we go. Okay. Okay. So we are getting there. The second to last step that we need to do, we're going to go ahead now and we're going to turn the bag so that the right side is out, and we'll just push our corners out. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to take the long piece that I've already gone ahead and I ironed. I've got the bias piece. Now you can always buy a piece of bias tape if you want, or I had this, so I decided to just pick one of the jelly roll strips and I ironed that together. So then you would just take, and we're going to just attach it all the way around the bag, and then the other step then will be to do the straps. So I when I do mine, I actually put I put the same fusible fleece inside of the strap as well. And I cut that just under an inch in width. I think about 3/4 of an inch, maybe just a tad over 3/4 of an inch. But it also depends if you want a wider strap too. Some people like to have, you know, a wider strap so that it's a little bit more comfortable maybe on your shoulder. So if you want a wider strap and you do want to put a piece of interfacing in there, then of course you would cut the interfacing a little bit wider as well. You know, everybody likes shoulder straps on their bags, you know, a little bit different. Some people might want to have a little bit shorter of, if you want it more like a purse. Some people might prefer to have it a little bit shorter than I cut mine, but I'm going to use this as kind of a tote bag when I travel on vacation. I think I'm going to take 2 bags with me. I'll probably take the purple one that I showed at the beginning of this, and then I'll probably take this one as well. So I'm going to cut them, you know, I'm going to leave the straps at the 30, I forget, 34, 35 or something like that, but you know, you could do them 32, 36, whatever your preference is. And if you want it a little bit wider, then, you know, go ahead and cut it as wide as you want it. I like to have a piece of the fusible fleece or some sort of interfacing or filling in the middle of it, just so, because I am going to be carrying it on my shoulder, so it's nice to have just a little bit of padding on it. And I also just think that it doesn't look as flimsy. So I went ahead and I sewed them, and I did tuck the ends in. As you can see on these, I went ahead and I tucked the ends in because these are actually going to be attached to the outside of the bag when we're done. They're not usually, when the tote bags that I've demonstrated in the past, you know, the tote bag, the handles are sewn in between the lining and the outer piece, but for this particular bag, it's not done that way. They're attached outside of it, so it's nice to fold them under so that they have that nice finished look and not have a raw edge showing. So I already went ahead and I sewed the straps together, and this was the what I chose to use for the straps. It, like I said, this was a whole collection, so all the pieces coordinate very nicely together. So the next step is going to be to attach the bias tape or whatever you choose to do along the top of the bag so that we hide the interior and the exterior. One thing that you might want to consider doing is, I don't normally do it, but you could, on the inside, you could take this and you could do a stitch. I've done it before on some of the bags. I do the stitch just to like close this up. But I'm keeping, if I sell it, I do that because I just think that it gives it a more finished look. But since I'm keeping this bag for myself, I'm not going to worry about doing that. You could also do, you could take a piece of bias tape too, and do that down the edge. If you're going to do that, I would recommend probably not cutting off that excess like we did a couple minutes ago. We cut that excess off. But so our next step is going to be to take the binding piece and we're going to attach it on, and then we'll sew it on. Okay. And I have a little bit extra of a piece here where I'm gonna go ahead though for right now, and I am gonna just keep that extra piece attached just to make sure that we're all good. So like with any, I'm gonna go along and I'm gonna sew it down, then I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna fold it over, and we'll go back around and we will, so that will fold over and it'll hide that raw edge, because this will be folded over at the end. Then we will attach the straps. Okay, so then we'll take and we're going to fold it over. Okay. There we go. All right. that first little bit is always a little bit on the tricky side. Okay, so what I did is we're just gonna fold that over. All the way around. We're gonna just go around and we're gonna pin it down, and then we'll go back and we'll sew that on. Okay. So the next step is I'm going to wrap this up, because the next steps I'm just going to explain, and I know that you'll be fine after this. So the next step is going to be, of course, to go back all the way around and attach this, do it kind of close to the lip here. You'll go all the way around and you'll do that. Then your next step is going to be to attach those handles. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure just like we did, all the other times that we've done bags. If you've watched my channel before, we're going to measure in about 4 inches from the side, and we're going to attach the handle. And then we are going to, we go from the side of the bag, and we're going to measure in 4 inches. Okay, so here's the 4-inch mark. We are going to take our handle and we're going to put it down like this, and then we're going to fold it up like this. And then what we would do is we would pin or clip that down. And then you would stitch in here. You could do a box, you could do an X, but what you would do, it's a little bit bulky. You would stitch, go down, go over, and go up. And if you were going to do a box, you could back stitch, stitch up, back stitch, and stitch up, and that would make an X. And then we would do the same thing on the other side. What we would do, make sure that your strap is even, and we would come in. We're going to take the edge of the bag, we're going to put our 4 at the edge of the bag, and then we would do the same thing. I use the edge of the bias tape as my guide. So I'm going to put the edge of the strap to the edge of the bias tape and fold it up. We would pin it and we would sew that on. And then the bag is done. So I would say, doing this bag, I would plan on at least an hour, probably about an hour and a half altogether. It is, at the very beginning when you're doing the strips, it is a lot of stopping and starting, because you're going to sew a strip on, then you're going to open that strip up, pin it down, go to the other side, put your right sides together, pin it down, sew it, take the pins out, open that up, pin that down. rinse and repeat the whole width across for each of your 8 strips. Then you're gonna attach the 2 side strips, the 2 short ones that we put on the edge here. So the bag does take a little while to make, but it's so pretty when it's done. It's so different. I love doing these bags. So I hope that you found this video helpful. I hope that you'll give it a thumbs up. If you make it, please leave a comment in the comment section below. I did mention at the very beginning of this that you can't do a pocket inside, and that's the reason why, because you're doing the strips, and if you did a pocket inside, then it would interfere with the strips on the outside. You would see the stitching. Now, if you wanted to, depending on the material that you have, you could always attach a pocket to the outside of the bag. And then if you wanted to do that before you have the bag right sides together and we sewed up the sides, what you would do then is you would sew a pocket onto the outside of the bag. So you would just take a piece of material, just like any other pocket. You would want to stitch sides so that the raw edges don't show, stitch up sides, and then you would figure out where on the bag you wanted it, and then stitch 3 sides, leaving 1 side open, and then you could have a pocket on the outside of the bag. Now, if you have, you could do it in either one of the material, one of the patterns that you have on the outside of the bag. If you have enough of the strips of the material, you could always sew the strips in the same order, and then you could line up the strips on the pocket. You could line them up to the strips on the bag and then sew it down, and that way you really wouldn't even be able to tell that there was an exterior pocket, because the materials would match the main body of the bag. But to put a pocket on the inside, you would see the stitching, and I just personally, especially because I wouldn't want to stitch it on in the green that I have on the inside, because that would look stupid on the outside, and I really wouldn't want to, depending on the fabric that I used, and I don't have enough of these strips to do it that it would coordinate. And I just really think that even if I did another piece out of this pattern, I don't think that I would like the way that looked. So I am choosing to not put a pocket on the outside, and of course I'm not going to put one on the inside either, because no color thread that I used would look good outside, because I've got, some of the strips are navy blue, some are pale blue, some are white and red. So no thread that I did would, I don't think it would look good to put a pocket on the inside. So I'm choosing to leave this bag just an open tote bag. As you can see, this is a quite a large bag. A lot fits in here. I actually have another bag like this that I did in some other materials, and I use it a lot when I go to the gym, because sneakers fit in here, shorts, a tank top, a water bottle. If I have the fingerless gloves, so if I'm doing weights, sometimes the weights bother my palms, so I bought the fingerless weightlifting gloves. So all that stuff fits beautifully inside of this bag. And then these are nice because I can, if they get, if I put workout clothes in them and they are smelly from sweating, the bag can go right into the washing machine, and it comes out and it smells all nice and fresh again. So I hope that you found this video helpful, and I hope that you will give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet subscribed to Angela Shows You, I do hope that you'll consider subscribing to the channel. I'm sorry that it's been about a week since I did a video. I've been super busy with work and just exhausted by the time the afternoon has come along, and I haven't done a video in about a week, so my apologies. But I also was getting ready for a craft show, so I was sewing a bunch of stuff that I've already shown several times on this channel, like the aprons, and so, you know, I didn't want to do another video on apron, because I've already done 2 or 3 apron videos, but I was getting ready for a craft show, so I just have been swamped in between work and getting ready for that show, and I haven't really done anything that I thought was video worthy lately. But I've got a bunch of stuff in store that I'm going to be doing over the next, you know, the rest of the summer. I can't believe that today is August 2nd already, but I have a bunch of stuff that I'm going to be doing, and then of course I'm going to be getting ready for fall and Christmas craft shows, and I have a bunch of ideas for things that I'm going to be doing for fall and winter craft shows. And one of the next videos that I'm going to do is we are going to sew a kitten, and we're going to a stuffed kitten, so stay tuned for the stuffed kitten. I'm hoping that I'll get that video out, and hopefully, I'm hoping over the weekend. I've got everything ready to go for the kitten, so it's just going to be a matter of sitting down and recording it. So if you want to learn how to do a stuffed kitten, stay tuned. That's coming up either next or one of the next 2 or 3 videos that I put out, but I'm hoping that one's next. So I will see you next time. Please thumbs up and subscribe to Angela Shows You if you haven't already. I appreciate the support as I work to grow my channel and show tutorials on cute and or useful and practical things to use around the home, or sew to sell if you are so inclined. See you next time.